Hello, my name is Denise Keel, and I serve as the co-chair of WeVote. WeVote is WMU's nonpartisan, campus-wide effort to institutionalize voting on campus and encourage students to make voting a lifelong habit. As part of that initiative, we do voter education, and this series is called What's on Your Ballot? This ballot information session for election 2020 is specific to the Kalamazoo County Housing Proposal. It'll be a question and answer session with one of our students, the VP for Community Involvement from Western Student Association, Henry Thury, along with two experts on this proposal, Stephanie Hoffman, the Executive Director from Open Doors, and Chris Burns, a Portage City Council member and co-chair for the Homes for All campaign. Again, this forum is sponsored by WeVote and is part of our voter education series for election 2020. We'll turn it over to our panelists now. So again, our technique here today is going to be for our student to ask our expert panelists just a few questions about the Kalamazoo County housing proposal that's on the back of your ballot if you're voting in Kalamazoo County this election. Henry, do you want to take it away?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Keel. Stephanie and Chris, thank you so much for being here. If you could go first into really defining the problem that's at hand and what this proposal aims to do to fix that problem.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having us here. So when we take a look at housing within our community, there has been a shortage for many, many years. And so that has really impacted our homeless population. And so pre-COVID, a group of local nonprofit agencies identified more than 700 individuals. And those are individuals that identified, not those that are hidden, that are doubled up, what we call doubled up or staying with family and friends, couch surfing. So over 700 pre-COVID. Once COVID hit and the stay-at-home order was executed, there were many families and children who had no place to stay at home. So how do you really settle down and hunker down during the pandemic, right? And so we really just saw the exasperation of the numbers increase in a way that was really unbelievable and heartbreaking in our community.
Yeah, and I would just add to that, when we talk about affordable housing, what we mean is people pay no more than 30% of their income on rent and utilities. And we know there's a big shortage. We've been talking with the people who run the affordable housing properties in Kalamazoo County, and especially a big one here in Portage is called Milam Meadows. There's 300 units, probably about 1,000 people living there. To get into those units, there's a wait list of anywhere between 9 months and a year. And so what does that mean? Like Stephanie was saying, it means people are left either to seek like shelters, like temporary shelters, or they're doubling up with family, or they're just out living on the streets. And so we know there's this big shortage. So our ballot initiative is to provide more local resources, dollars, to one, help people afford rent, but then two, to build more units so that people don't get stuck in this cycle of homelessness. We've got a place for people to go.
That's great. Thank you both so much for that answer. And Stephanie, you touched on this a little bit, but I'm curious if you can elaborate some more on why it's really important right now for this ballot proposal to get passed. Why is it so imperative?
Again, Henry, what we've seen is that our pandemic really shone a light on the disparities, especially those facing low-income families and those who have even deeper than low income, so are very, very low. And we're talking about individuals who are on a fixed income and may be receiving less than $800 a month. And so when you think about the rental costs within our community, right now, a studio, according to HUD definitions of affordability, a studio is around almost $600, and that's just for a studio apartment. And so when you take a look at that $800, and I'm rounding up, and you take that $500 to $600, that's 3/4 of that income. So what happens with food, what happens with utilities, what happens with personal needs? The other thing is what we are noticing is that those that are most affected by homelessness right now in our county, and I think this is throughout the state, are single mothers with children who have been in domestic violence situations. And so when you think about that, there are so many things that are coming together in a way that right now, today, this time, this is our moment to really show our residents of Kalamazoo County that we as a county care about you. And we believe that housing is not just a need, housing is a fundamental right. And so in order to do that, we need our community to step up and really pass this most crucial ballot initiative on November 3rd. We are going to change not only lives of children and women, but veterans and older adults and persons with disabilities. We will be able to create new housing that will provide supportive services and permanent housing, accessible housing as well. So it's not just a homeless mission millage, it is homes for all. So we're really looking to expand. And the one thing that I love about this initiative is we will be able to address housing needs in every district of the county.
Awesome. That's great and really informative. An issue that people might raise, especially this November, and you touched on this with the COVID-19 crisis, even if you have a home and you aren't homebound, the COVID-19 pandemic has still impacted your bottom line. It's made it so likely you have less money. And a lot of voters might be concerned with the cost. So if you could elaborate on the cost of this initiative, I think that'd be great.
Sure, I can jump in and take that one. So this is going to be a property tax, which means it applies based on how valuable your home is or your property if you're a business owner. It's 0.75 mils, which means if you own a house that's worth $100,000, this will cost you about $37.50 a day. And when we did the math on the campaign, that works out to be about a dime a day. And the reason we are asking for 0.75 mils is it strikes that balance between making a big impact on the affordable housing problems we're having, but also being affordable for people who currently own a home and are citizens in our county.
Great, that's awesome. And Stephanie, you touched on this question a little bit too, but if you could elaborate some more on who would this millage funding help, and maybe identify those types of people that it would help most immediately.
Well, the people and the families that it will help most immediately will be those families that will need rental assistance financially. So we said 0.75. So when we break that down, 0.25 will go towards rental subsidy, 0.50 will go to the actual building, the bricks and mortar parts of what we're trying to do with this millage. And that's to get more units on the ground where we have families that can access those things. When you think about what's been happening in the last 2 to 3 years, it's been identified that our county is lacking between 3,000 and 6,000 units of affordable housing. And so this initiative is going to give us the ability not to solve it, but it's a great start. And so when you think about the millage and the dollars that it will bring in, we will be able to use those dollars to leverage with state and federal funding to increase even more. And so Chris, you want to jump in a little bit here? Sure,
yeah. So since 2015, the county has had a program that helps families who have school-age children who are in one of the KRESA schools. So that means Kalamazoo Public Schools, Portage Public Schools, Comstock, one of the county's public schools. And counselors in those schools refer the families in, and they get a year's worth of rental support, as well as connection to support services to help them work out whatever employment situation they may have going on, and they're in stable housing. And that program has been doing great. It's helped over 500 families, but the issue we're having is, and so what we want to do with the new millage is expand that pool of people that can be helped with that program. So those are the folks who will be helped right away. But one of the issues we ran into is that we ran out of units for folks, even if somebody is there with a voucher willing to pay someone's rent, there just aren't any vacant units. If you look across the county, the vacancy rate for the past 3 years has been less than 4%. And so it doesn't even matter if your rent is paid, you don't have a unit to go home to. And that's why we're working on this initiative now. But the people who will be helped most immediately will be the expanded pool of rental subsidy recipients. And then over time, we'll be able to make a dent in the shortage of units. But that's a development process, and it does take a little while, especially with like apartment buildings, for example, to get those built up.
Yeah, that's great. That's really informative. Thank you. In terms of, the mills that are being collected, who would decide specifically how that money is spent?
Great. Yeah. So this is a county level program. And what's really cool about that is the county government gets to decide, and they've got kind of a broader purview to address the whole county's housing needs. So in Portage, for example, we just had a big expansion with new jobs from FedEx. And so we may not have as many issues with extremely low income people, but we may have workforce housing needs where folks who are making $12 to $14 an hour still can't afford market rate rent. And we want units where they're not paying more than 30% of their income. Certain of our jurisdictions also may have more need for senior housing, for example. And so what this will allow for the first time in Kalamazoo County is the county government to take a broader picture of our housing needs and then work with the underlying cities and townships on the projects that those underlying municipalities need specifically.
That's great. That's really awesome. I appreciate that response. And you touched on this a little bit prior with providing rent assistance and specifically, allowing people to only spend 30% to keep it affordable per month of their monthly income. But could you talk specifically about some of the other items or things that this money could be spent on?
Sure. Yeah. So you can think about the different housing needs in a couple different ways. So one, we know we need more units. That means we need to provide some money for building like apartment complexes. Over half of the people who are renters in our county are living at places with 50 or more units in an apartment complex. So that's where you can get a lot of units opened up is in some bigger apartment complex. But there's also, and COVID's impacting this too, homeowners who have some kind of maintenance that needs to be done on their home. And if it's not done, then they may wind up in a condemnation kind of situation where then they can't live in the home anymore. So some of the money could go to existing homeowners as well to deal with rehabilitation projects. Some could go towards single family homes too. So one of the issues with apartments is they're not as family friendly if you have many kids in your family. So single family homes are a great solution to that particular issue. And Stephanie, what am I missing? Oh, support services, of course, you can talk about that.
Yeah, and so what this will do is, so a family coming out of a homeless situation, anyone who has experienced that is a traumatic experience, right? And so it takes a certain amount of time to really find your footing as a family. And even more so, it impacts children in different ways where they are acting out sometimes in class, not because they have behavior issues, but there's stressors that are in their lives and they don't have the communication skills to say what is exactly happening at the home. So when we talk about supportive services, we're talking about providing counseling or one-on-ones. We're talking not just financially, but also looking at the budget, the household budget, and begin to do financial management with that family. Also addressing issues dealing with health issues. And so connecting all these things. So when you think about homelessness, when you think about housing insecurity, all of these different areas are intersecting, right? And so we believe that if a family has a stable place to call home, a place that is affordable, permanent, energy efficient, and quality, we have set the stage for success for that family and their children, right? And so the other thing I wanted to hit on too is with the home ownership piece, we are experiencing in Kalamazoo, and again, I can't say it's only relegated to Kalamazoo, but there are huge disparities in home ownership opportunities for communities of color. And so this millage is going to pay a lot of attention to that to lessen those disparities. And so it's not just for rental housing. We're going to be able to touch so many areas in the housing sector, but that will encompass education, law enforcement, healthcare systems, all these different things. And we just believe that housing is the fundamental ground to do this work on.
Yeah, that sounds really impactful. Thank you both for that response. To start to kind of close it out here, most of our audience viewing this video is going to be students or people that are otherwise represented in WMU community. And a lot of these students are going to graduate, in 4 years or 2 years or 1 year and leave Kalamazoo. The Kalamazoo might not be their home forever. So why should these students feel compelled to support this proposal?
would say number one, to help future generations of Broncos. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Invisible Need project on campus there, but you know, there are students who are facing housing and food insecurity, and they're probably not out broadcasting it. They're probably sitting next to you in class and you would never know. But these are the type of folks who too could benefit from more affordable housing stock in the county. And so for, you know, we bleed brown and gold around here. For your future generations of Broncos, you should get out and vote yes on this.
The other piece is I think that we as a community will send a message not only to Kalamazoo County, but to the state and to the federal government. I believe Kalamazoo is one of those communities that is primed to be a model community as it relates to homelessness, housing. What we are trying to do, this is the first time in my experience being here in Kalamazoo that we've had philanthropy, government, nonprofit, for-profit coming together to really be on the same page and create a solution or the beginning of a solution, right? It took us decades to get here. It's going to take us decades to get out, but this is the perfect start. And I believe when we have this collective energy moving forward, whether you stay in Kalamazoo or you leave, you will be a part of that collective impact, that lives will be changed and our residents will know that they are worthy, valuable, and we see them and we feel them and we are here to be that backbone for you when you need that step up.
Yeah, that's great. I'm sure a lot of Broncos are really happy to support this proposal. If they can learn, if in order to learn more about this proposal and other efforts that you both are working on, where can they go for that information?
Yeah, we would love to have more Broncos following our Facebook page. I'm going to get the link right now, but there's a Facebook page and a website that we've set up for the campaign. The Facebook page is facebook.com/KZoo Homes for All. And the website is kazoo4housing.com, kazoo4housing.com.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I really appreciate both of your time today. Before we go, if there's anything else that you'd like to add, absolutely feel free.
Yeah, I would just say, you know, national politics get a lot of the headlines, and you're probably well familiar with the presidential candidates. But if you want to make real change in your local community, flip to the back of your ballot, find our housing millage, and vote yes on it.
Well, great.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you both so much for all of these wonderful answers. So WeVote is a nonpartisan organization. It's a campus-wide effort that promotes voting and encourages students to make voting a lifelong habit. And so I did just have one other question about who are some of the supporters? What are you seeing any opposition to this current ballot? Again, we always try to find you know, all sides of the story. And I know that you're coming from very different backgrounds. Maybe you could speak to that just a little bit.
Go ahead, Stephanie.
In my experience, one of the questions that have come about, and I don't think it's in opposition, it's really about how effective will it be? And we believe this is the beginning of a solution that can be modeled throughout other communities and other counties within the state. So I can't really speak to opposition at this point. And I have to choose to focus on what we're trying to get through, because there are so many people who not only need this, but our county, our entire county needs this. And so I have to choose to focus on what the end goal, and the end goal is that everybody flips a ballot over and votes yes. So scribble it in very good and very dark and make sure that it's counted, and it will be the last initiative on the back of the ballot.
Yeah, and I would just say it's not just the two of us, Stephanie and I. There is a great steering committee that's made up of around 20 people, and it includes representatives from county government, so the county treasurer, the land bank authority. These are both folks that are involved with housing issues. Folks from the nonprofit sector, so Stephanie, but also folks from different nonprofits that you may know of, Housing Resources, Housing Matters, several others. And then other county government leaders, so county commissioners, 3 or 4 of them. So it's going to take a whole community effort to make a big difference. And fortunately, the community really seems to be supporting this initiative.
That's great to hear. So well, thank you, Henry. Thank you, Stephanie. Thank you, Chris. I'm going to share my screen again so that everybody can make sure they get your titles right. And we will be sharing this on the WeVote website and pushing it out through our social media, along with the Facebook and website that you gave us. So folks can absolutely go and look up some more information. But just reminding everybody what's on your ballot. And if you have any voting questions, students, you need to be going to WeVote. You can visit wmich.edu/vote. And we have bought a service called Turbo Vote this year. So you can sign up for that with your email or cell phone, and you will get reminders about your registration status, the absentee ballot status, helping you mail that in, finding a drop box, or how to visit your in-person clerk to make sure your voice is heard. Big news on campus, we now have a satellite clerk's office for those of you that live in the city of Kalamazoo or live on campus in the Bernhard Center in the Ballrooms 105. Any of your questions, those clerks can go help you out. They are wonderful public servants. And I just want to thank so much our guests here today, Henry Thury from Western Student Association, for asking some great questions and walking us through the proposal here today. We're Stephanie Hoffman, the Executive Director of Open Doors, and Chris Burns, current Portage City Council member and the co-chair for Homes for All campaign. Thank you all so much for being with us today.